Hey guys, Joe here, and welcome back to 750 Gaming. In this one we're heading back to my Astra Militarum army, and more specifically, heading back to the 3D printer. So in my previous video looking at my Astra Militarum project, I ended up designing and 3D printing my own armoured personnel carriers. Well, that's how it started. Then they morphed into my own proxy variants of all the tanks that sit on the classic 40k Chimera chassis. I popped the STLs for that up on my mini factory for free, so if you watch that video and like what you see, you can go and get those STLs for yourself, should you wish. Anyway, in the process of putting together this list, I ended up using a Manticore, or rather I ended up using the Surface Defence Corps' Falcon missile platform. Yeah, sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful really. Now, of course, G-Dubs nerfed a load of the indirect fire potential of the Guard's big backfield artillery, and rightly so. It was a bit of a cheat code, but we can still synergise things to good effect, like the old, or shall we say young, Scout Sentinel. Whap a couple of those in the centre field and you've got a semi-tanky unit which is modestly armed and can mitigate said indirect fire nerf to some extent. And you can then keep your Manticores or Basilisks or mortar teams camping on those backfield objectives and still bombard your enemy as and when. Lovely stuff. Sounds like a plan. Let's do that then. Except, man, those Sentinels be dorky. I don't really know how to describe what I feel when I look at them. I've tried to put it into words eloquently a few times to no avail, so I'll just say that to me, they look like some sort of long-legged flightless bird that's just wandering around pecking at stuff, never extending their wings, and I just don't like the aesthetic. It's probably just my issue. I get it. It's fine. I still want Sentinels in my army, just not those ones. So I went and designed my own. They're still walkers with longish striding legs, but the weapons are mounted onto arms or something that constitutes as an arm anyway for my preferred aesthetic, and to me they feel a bit more balanced and mech-like. A bit like the old Invicta tactical warsuit thing, which I actually didn't like until I stuck some massive Ninjago swords on it. Anyway, back to my Scout Sentinels. My reconnaissance mechs. I drew them all at a large scale, and then set about scaling them down to a comparable size to the official Sentinels, which turned out to be around 8%. Initially I printed a couple at 9%, and they just felt a bit big, as if they were better, stronger and tougher than they actually are meant to be. So I gambled on 7%, so the weapons I'd modelled were the same scale as the weapons on all my APCs, but then the whole package felt too small and puny, so in the end it was 8%. 8% seemed to work well. I also realised that for all the modularity and posability that I'd modelled them with, it was a proper faff trying to stick them all together, even at 9%. So I went back to the drawing board after I'd got my oversized concepts going and set about basing and posing the legs as a solid dynamic looking object that would be easier to assemble, and they've come out looking okay, plus it saves a little bit on basing ideas. They are of course flexible. You can mirror the arms or legs to give yourself some variety, and of course the weapon options are all interchangeable. They even have holes for magnets, or rather there were holes for magnets at the original scale. Once we're down at about 8% they're more like pilot holes than actual usable recesses, but you at least know where you need to drill them out, and you can of course drill as big as you want depending on what magnets you have in stock. And again, I'm going to put all these files up on my mini factory, and I'll put a link to them below. I've put all the original individual 100% scale STL parts up, so you can scale them to whatever you desire. Like I said, I'm using them as Sentinels, but you might want to use them as something else entirely at some other scale. You do you. The 100% bits are exactly that, bits. So the foot, for instance, is made up of a foot bit and 3 toes. Well, there's a single STL for an individual toe, which you'll need to multiply and print as many times as necessary to get the number you want. The legs and the upper arm are all modelled there as the left hand side, so to get the right hand side versions you'll just need to mirror them in your slicer. So yeah, 100% files, your oyster to do with what you wish. With the 8% versions, I've taken the liberty of uploading the posed versions of the legs, and like I said, I've made a solid STL of the feet and some sort of terrain, all on an 80mm base, coordinated so that the appropriate leg set will be appropriately orientated to fit in, with the pelvis bit in between as well. Hopefully that will allow you to just slice the STLs at 8% and print and assemble without needing to think too much about it. There's pose A and B with relevant bases, and you can of course just mirror those to theoretically have up to 4 different bottom half poses if you wanted 4. Oh, and just as an aside, because I ended up with like 100 million bits of mech where I test printed this part and that at all these different scales, I've ended up with lots of them. And my boys asked if they could have one each, seeing as well, I've got loads. So I said yes, of course, but they don't need more toys with guns and swords and things sitting around on their windowsills, so I modelled some lower arms and hands. So, rather than being big machines of war, they've got some plain old robots to play with instead. And you might be able to utilise those parts for your own aesthetic or your own means or whatever. So yeah, the lower arm and hands are all there at 100% too, just for fun. And like I said, they're all going to go up on my mini factory for free for a limited time. After which I may choose to apply a minimal cost to them. I might not, I don't know. But if you're watching this early and want them, then grab them for free now, and I'll put the link in the description below, like I said. So there you go, what do you think of these things? Do they work for you? Are they better than the original? Would you print them to use in your army? Give me a like or a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I've got a bit more, okay, plenty more infantry still to muster, assemble and paint, and then at some point I'll do a video on my thoughts of the Astra Militarum as a whole, my interpretation of it, how it looks on the table, and ultimately discuss the finances of a Horde-ish 40k army. G-dubs proper and official, or otherwise. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But until then, thanks for watching. Let's go! Yes, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, then do hit like and give me a comment below. I don't do this to pay my bills, it's just for fun without a regular release schedule or anything. So hit subscribe to catch these videos when I do them, or visit my Instagram for my hobbying updates. My content isn't monetized, I have no Patreon, but if you want to tip the busker by chucking some pennies in the digital hat, then I have a buy me a coffee thing set up and I'll be very grateful. See you next time.